got some problems here in Kansas currently with it being really dry, and just within the last few days there's been some pretty big wildfires, grass fires, that have been a problem. So a lot of counties have burn bans, and I knew that where I was thinking about going camping tonight probably had a burn ban, so I called and checked with the sheriff's department. Sure enough, can't have campfires. But I decided what the heck, come out. Yeah, it's kind of disappointing not to be able to have a campfire, but you know, I have camp stoves. I have plenty of camp stoves to use. So that's not really a problem. I just don't have a fire to sit in front of and watch is the main downside. Don't have a fire to get warm in front of, but you know, I'm still enjoying my time out. It's better than just hanging around, sitting at home watching TV. Just heating up my my supper. Hopefully it's heating up. I'm just eating an MRE tonight. I have a good number of them and have to eat them eventually, and seems just kind of silly to eat them at home, so I might as well have one tonight. Hopefully the little ration heater's working. I don't know. May have to fire up one of the stoves and heat up some water and just heat all the food in that. But enjoying the night. I guess if you can't sit around a campfire and stare into that, gas-powered lantern might be the sort of next best thing, maybe. Fired up my old Coleman lantern that's it's built in 1960 something, 67 maybe. It's older than I am. Works great. Trusty old lantern. One of the big hat style. But it's keeping things lit up. I can always hold my hands over it to warm them up if I want to. Made sure to bring a book because I might have to pull out the book and just read until I get tired or something tonight, instead of just staring off into the fire and tending the fire like the usual thing. But it'll be enjoyable. Have a beverage or two. Just enjoy the evening. Here are the accommodations for the night. I rigged up my two East German shelter half rain cloaks. A little different configuration than I've used before. Can't really see much of it, but yeah, I'll have to show it in the light tomorrow. Yeah, I brought a book to read. Don't have a fire to sit in front of or anything, so I have to do something to maybe keep myself occupied before I finally decide to go to sleep. But yeah, it should be a good night. Can't quite decide if I want to try to sleep under just with a wool blanket and a whoopee, or I did bring one of my down sleeping bags in case I wanted to go with that option. Just guess time will tell. All right, made it through the night. Big surprise there. Time for some coffee. Now, I have gone on a little bit of an expedition over the last several months in trying to find a good stainless steel perking camp coffee pot, and I didn't really do so well. And I found this one, and I got kind of excited about it. And I bought it, and in some ways it seems like it's pretty well constructed, and in other ways it seems like it isn't. It's a really nice, sturdy little perk basket. The problem is it's really shallow, and it has like that screen filter stuff at the bottom. And every time I've made coffee with this in there, the grounds just float out the top, and you wind up with tons and tons of coffee grounds in your coffee, which
after you let them settle to the bottom isn't necessarily that big of a deal, but it's not supposed to do that at all. It's kind of the whole point of the basket. If I wanted a bunch of grounds in my coffee, I'd just make camp coffee or cowboy coffee, which I finally decided, why mess with a stupid perk basket when I think camp coffee tastes just fine. If you're used to making coffee with a French press or anything like that, you're kind of used to some grounds or some coffee grit settling to the bottom anyway, so what the heck. So this, not using that today. Fill up our pot. Really easy recipe. Water, coffee grounds. Throw them all in the same pot together. That ought to do it. I've heard it said with the cowboy coffee that you're supposed to throw coffee grounds in there to the point that when you toss a horseshoe in it, it floats on top and it doesn't sink. I didn't quite go that far. They're all our stove fired up here. No campfire this weekend because of the burn ban, so good excuse just to break out the old camp stoves. I think this was actually one of the first stoves I ever bought. It was the first white gas stove I ever bought. Bought this thing back in like 1997, I believe. So it's around 21 years old now. Still works, as you would expect it to. MSR Dragonfly. You just have to let a little of the gas come out, kind of fill that burner cup, light it on fire, let it heat up. Because this particular type of stove, along with many other stoves, it uses the heat of that burner cup to vaporize the liquid fuel. And once it gets hot, it shoots out that little stream of liquid fuel. It hits that hot burner cup and just instantly vaporizes and mixes with air and burns. It's not a very quiet stove. Yeah, another thing about this pot that isn't the greatest, because these weren't attached to a very good spot, it hangs kind of funny. We'll let that go to work and bring it to a boil. as this is heating up, the grounds just kind of float there on top. And as the water heats up, they start just kind of sinking in there, and by the time it's boiling, they're totally immersed. Putting the windscreen around it really helps contain the heat more, makes it more efficient. When it finally comes to a boil, right as it starts boiling, you want to be careful because it has a tendency to boil out of the pot. Something about there's a lot of oxygen being released from the water. So you just have to watch it. And then it will kind of settle down and just boil. And you want to let it boil for 1 minute and then take it off the heat. Just take it off, set it to the side, and we're done. So let the ground settle, and then it'll be ready to drink. Putting some water on to make oatmeal in my Morris pot. One nice thing about the MSR Dragonfly stove is it's very adjustable. You can adjust the flame from just a teeny little simmer to a really rip-roaring loud blast stove jet engine. With the camp coffee, generally speaking, after the coffee comes to a boil and the grounds are totally submerged in the water, they just kind of circulate around, and then after you take it off the heat, they just settle to the bottom. So usually when you pour it, you get almost no grounds whatsoever because they're all on the bottom of the pot.
Gonna make a little mountain mocha. And why not? I have milk powder. Nice and rich. Yeah, nothing too adventurous from a cooking standpoint on this little camp out. That's all right. You can whip up all sorts of foods over a campfire. You can definitely do it over a camp stove. Even if you can't have a campfire, it's just good to get out and spend the night outside and enjoy the evening, enjoy the morning. It's kind of that time of the year where it's not really winter anymore, but yet it's spring hasn't exactly started, at least not officially. It wasn't supposed to get quite down to freezing last night. Yeah, just kind of as something to try. I tried sleeping under just a wool blanket and my Whoopee, the poncho liner, and it worked pretty well. It was keeping me fairly warm, but probably should have. I have another one of those same wool blankets, or kind of it's like a wool blend. Probably should have brought the other one because that way I could have laid one under me and then I could have laid the other one on top of me with that Whoopee. Instead, I tried to kind of, lay on half of it and flip the other half over the top of me. It's just a twin-size blanket, so I just really couldn't move around too well without kind of disturbing how I had things set up. So at some point in time in the middle of the night, I just said, what the heck. I pulled out the down bag that I had in the stuff sack just right next to me and crawled into that and then pulled the Whoopee over that. And of course, because they're both made out of nylon, the Whoopee fell off and it slid off at some point in time, but I was just perfectly warm in my down sleeping bag. But if I had a fire in front of that shelter, I most certainly would have been warm enough with that wool blanket and all that stuff. It was mostly just about trying some new things out, seeing how they work. Good stuff. Okay, the audio here got a little messed up, so I'm going to do a little voiceover. This is a shelter that I set up I used a couple of the East German shelter half rain cloaks. They're really similar to the Russian Plashpalaka shelter halves. The only real difference is that the German ones have little aluminum buttons all along all four sides, whereas the Russian shelter halves just have little wooden toggles that go halfway along just one of the sides. There's also two of the little like arm holes on each of them, whereas the Russian ones just have one. They're almost exactly the same size. One of them is just a teeny bit bigger than the other. I can't remember which one's a little bit bigger. But they make really good canvas tarps. They'll definitely keep the rain off of you. I set up a little bit. This pitching configuration was a little bit different than I had tried before, but worked pretty well. Yeah, I just kind of propped this one side up a little bit to add a little bit more room. You wouldn't necessarily have to do that. You just have to contend with more of the tarp just kind of laying in your face. But there's a decent amount of room under there. Definitely plenty of room to slide some gear back there and keep it dry. There's about enough room up there to sit up there. Not, you'd have to hunch over. But you know, I have a tent that probably didn't have quite that much room in it, so yeah, it's really not that bad. Kind of kept the wind, not that there was a whole lot of wind last night, but kind of kept a little bit of the wind off and helped me spend a pretty comfortable night. And I'm pretty confident if it had started raining, if I just kind of slid back underneath it a little bit more, I'm sure it would have kept me pretty dry as long as the rain was coming straight down, or at least from the right direction.